But anyway, we have some good news. We have a white pill for once in my life. So let's have a free speech victory. So there's a bit of free speech victory around the Eton case. You remember we have talked about this a lot in the podcast. We had the chap Noland on the show to talk about his case. So this was a guy who dared say that men and women are different, and therefore masculinity and femininity are different, and tied to that biological difference. That's it. That was his argument. And for that, he lost his job. Eton, the most elite institution in Britain, kicked him out. So it just goes to show that no one is safe from the realm of woke political correctness, because he dared to say that men and women are different. Even the most elite of the elite institutions have swallowed this disgusting pill. So we have him on his YouTube channel, Nolan Knows. Everyone should go and subscribe because he's a good boy. Celebrating his victory. So you can see the article there and him taking a quote from it, saying that the agency has dismissed all charges against him, which is fantastic. If we go to the next link, we have the interview with Noland as well, if you want to go and see our interview with him. So that's premium content on lotuses.com, doing some smart shilling there. But also, if we go to the next one, you can see the video in which he was lambasted for, the evil man for daring to make a video called The Patriarchy Paradox, which if you haven't, do go and watch, because it's quite interesting about the differences in the arguments he makes about sex and gender. But the evil man, what is an example of his heresy? Well, saying that men provide, protect, and procreate. That's like one of the things he was lambasted for. So let's go for this clip as an example of that video.
In a cross-cultural study of manhood, David Gilmour, professor of anthropology, concluded that three moral injunctions seem to come repeatedly into focus. One must impregnate women, protect dependents from danger, and provision kith and kin. None of these three roles, procreate, protect, provide, is exclusively masculine, but the protector role is the least shared, making it the core of masculinity. It is the least shared because it is the one most firmly rooted in anatomy and physiology. Even in lion prides, this is very clear. Although lionesses do 90% of the providing, the males are responsible for protecting the pride. They only help kill the largest, most dangerous prey that would otherwise cost the lives of too many lionesses. Accordingly, in all cultures, war has usually been men's work. It is Gilmour's universal protector role.
So the thing I wanted to include that for, especially, is to just make the point, for people who haven't watched it. It's so middle of the road. Here's my argument. It's very sensibly argued, very carefully. You can disagree with him in the comments. He responds to the comments and all that. Leaves all his sources. He's put a note saying this is not endorsed by Eton. He did everything right you could to try and make this in a, let's say, socially acceptable manner. And even then, they came after him and decided he was a heretic.
It is ridiculous, because this is like beginner level psychology teaching. Like you learn this stuff. It's like the fundamentals. Like you'd be stupid not to know it in the first week of your psychology course at university or something like that. Like it's so entry level and uncontroversial that it's obvious, right?
And yet that's haram. That's not allowed.
Apparently so.
I thought I'd give an example of a recent video he did as well, which I found particularly funny. So this is a video called What They Won't Teach You in School, about living as LGBTQI++ or whatever the other acronyms are on there. I thought I'd just play this next clip because I just thought it was really funny watching it.
4. Until 2009, the FDA posted the Surgeon General's advice that sodomy was simply too risky to practice. On WebMD, it's still listed as the riskiest sexual activity. Now, has the anus evolved since 2009?
I just love how deadpan he is about the whole thing as well. Like, well, has it? Has it?
You can tell he's a teacher by managing to keep a straight face
yeah.
while saying that, right?
Yeah, so I mean, just a true statement as well. Like he makes the argument in there, he gives the evidence of, well, there's risk of tearing, there's no natural lubricant, it's full of bacteria, it's not biologically engineered for penetration. He's not saying that you shouldn't be gay or anything of the sort. He's saying that, no, there are differences and these are the things they won't teach you. So again, I mean, just a completely normal, middle of the road, sensible man. And yet, for that is crime. But he's won, so that's the good news. So here's the Times article. Free speech victory for Eton teacher Will Nolan sacked over gender lecture. A teacher who was sacked by Eton over a provocative lecture on gender has been cleared by a watchdog of professional misconduct in a verdict hailed as a victory for free speech in schools. Will Nolan, 35, was referred to the teaching regulatory agency over his lecture. Again, how dare this teacher lecture people? Oh boy. Which is called the Patriarchy Paradox. The TRA, an executive agency of the Department of Education, can impose a lifetime ban on the profession. So that's the big win here. I mean, if a teacher got a lifetime ban for simply studying, as you say, basics of psychology, then there really is no hope. But this is good news, and we should celebrate it. So in a letter to Nolan's, the TRA said, the determination meeting has conducted that your case should be closed with no further action. Done. They're just not interested. This was a waste of our time. So there is some spark in these institutions of being meaningful, let's say. So the watchdog also considered a reference to Marie Claire's magazine, in which a working wife said she wanted to be overwhelmed by the sheer power of her husband's masculinity in the bedroom, but wasn't because she felt like the man in a relationship. Again, he pointed out like an article Carl would read to prove dadism, and that's the crime. That's the thing he did wrong, in which they were just like, right, this is a waste of our time entirely. So at the end of this, they say Eton alleged that Nolan, who had taught at the school for 8 years, had committed serious misconduct of telling his students the basic facts about life. In his evidence to the TRA, Nolan responded to claims that the lecture was offensive to women and LGBT people, and said that it breached fundamental values of tolerance and respect. So that's the Eton school trying to say that he was being offensive to women and LGBTs. Like, nope, bringing facts to them. And if the facts are offensive, problems with you, not with the facts. Facts don't care about your feelings. Ben Shapiro over here from Will. Good point.
It's good that this kind of thing is going out in the Telegraph as well, because the kind of people who are going to be going to or putting their kids in Eton, the most expensive school probably in the country, are going to be typical Telegraph readers like, oh, that Eton's been saying that men aren't supposed to, protect people. Well, that's a bit strange, isn't it?
Complete bollocks.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe we shouldn't send you there for £30,000 a year or whatever it is.
Yeah. So Nolan's lawyer, Simon Henthorne of Doyle Clayton. I don't know how that word works. Like, that name is so goddamn long. Simon Henthorne of Doyle Clayton. Anyway, so he said the decision marks a victory for freedom of speech in schools, which it certainly does. Nolan is now a private tutor and is taking Eton to employment tribunal. So that'll be the next victory, presumably, for him, which is to get his position back, and also that they wrongfully dealt with him, which they did. I mean, this is just unjust. It is not a fair way to deal with someone. I did love that on his YouTube channel. He published this video a little while back, which I just looks like a threat to me. So, I am too Chad for this organization. So it's a video of him lifting 302 kilograms in a deadlift, which is just absolute Chad. Anyway, so I thought we'd have this story, so we can compare this. This is one we can all agree on as liberals. This man said that men are men, women are women, and he lost his job. He was kicked out by the organization for daring to be a heretic, and he's now taking them to an employment tribunal. I thought we'd compare this to a leftist who's realised the same thing, that, oh dear, political correctness and all this nonsense will end up biting me in the arse, and it certainly has. Black radicalism is a protected belief system. An academic will argue in a legal battle against a university which cut ties with her over her racist tweet. She's going to argue that she has the right to say the N-word. I'm not kidding. This is where this is going.
This will be interesting.
So let's go to the next link. You can see what they did here. So this is the Race Trust. The Race Trust. I mean, what a thing to call yourself. And they tweeted at Kelvin Robinson, if you can get the second image up there. Does it not shame you that most people see you as a house N? Right. I don't know if I can say that one, or if I can say the...
Probably best not to.
Best not to. But I don't know if it's a protected belief yet. So anyway,
maybe it'll become your right, Callum.
Yeah, so if we go to the article, this is fantastic. I mean, this is where the Equality Act just becomes pure gold. Because we've always been complaining about it as liberals because it's equality, socialist nonsense. Largely is. Except they done goof big time. So when they wrote this in England, they wrote that you also had protected philosophical beliefs, because they didn't want to just say about religion and no religion. Well, what's a philosophical belief? Philosophical belief is everything.
Yeah.
So you've had people being able to defend themselves as being gender critical, and therefore that's a philosophical belief. I'm protected under that, and that's worked. So this lady's going to go for it, and she's going to be like, yeah, my belief in the N-word. That's a philosophical belief. And if she wins, I guess everyone else can use it as well. So she is suing the university, arguing that her dismissal discriminated against her belief in critical race theory and black radicalism. An academic movement which broadly upholds that race is a social construct which is used to oppress minorities. The case is believed to be the first in its kind in Britain. That's wrong, by the way, the authors here. The idea that critical race theory thinks that race is a social construct. No. They think race is very, very, very real. Anyway, Professor Kahindi Andrews, who branded Winston Churchill a white supremacist... Oh, boy. How does he chime into this? He has supported her. Of course he has. In her fight in an open letter arguing that terms such as house N are not necessarily racial slurs.
Are they not? Well,
Okay.
well, in that case, well, they must be fine to say it then.
It's not a racial slur, but instead it is a concept that comes out of the struggles for racial justice.
That is such a I don't even know what to call it. It's so ridiculous.
They're going to sit in the tribunal and be like, yeah, so the N-word isn't a racial slur, it's a description of ill behaviour, Your Honour.
So, unironically, this campaigner against racism, her words, she's obviously promoting it, but she's going to give everyone in the UK the right to use the N-word if she wins.
Yes, we are all going to get N-word passes thanks to this lady. As long as we use it along critical race theory lines. Because
Okay.
that's going to be the caveat, isn't it? As long as you're a leftist using the N-word, that's fine.
There's
Right,
going to
William?
be a lot of people just like, well, maybe I was wrong about this critical race theory business. Well, now this court case has been won. It's all of a sudden so much more appealing.
Just anyone who ever gets caught saying the N-word publicly, they're going to be like, yeah, well, I'm a critical race theorist, so just get lost. There's be nothing you can do about it either. That's the best part. Because if this has become case law, like for the employment tribunal, well then it's there.
Well, it's in a way is some kind of meme magic because it would of course make hate crime basically redundant. Just like, yep,
There are no hate crimes. Only critical race theory statements. Anyway, so the lady who founded the Race Trust is a non-profit organization that offers racial literacy training for schools. She's a race grifter. That's her job. She spends her time grifting up that there are systemic racism issues throughout Britain, even though it's the least racist country on earth by any metric, except perhaps, Canada? I don't know. Who scores higher on this in the metric? Certainly not the French, that's for sure. Anyway, so that's her job, that's what she does, and she's going to get the M-word into the legal vocabulary of all British people. The Race Trust account subsequently responded to a critic of its remarks on Twitter, calling them a coconut.
what?
You can see that there. They're just inside.
Did I mishear that? Hang on.
No, they doubled down. They were just like, mate, you shouldn't call black people the N-word. And they're like, yeah, whatever, coconut. I love it. I mean, I don't know why that's not part of the tribunal as well. I mean, we're going to make that a protective phrase, but okay. Oh, boy. So apparently she worked for the university on an advisory basis. She was the one advising the university on with its Center for Race Education and Decoloniality. So this lady, who is the anti-racist, was advising them on how to use the N-word appropriately, presumably. That's her job.
She does seem like an expert, to be fair.
Yeah. The university severed ties with the academic following her remarks.
Yeah, I wonder why.
In a statement at the time, the university said it was ending its association with the lady, adding that it condemned the use of racist language. So, I mean, that's the best part. The university's come out and be like, nah, we want nothing to do with her. I mean, that's why
Good.
she's taking them to tribunal, but condemns her utterly. And then she's got to sit there and be like, yeah, well, the N-word is not that bad. I should be allowed to do it. And
Is she even of African heritage?
who isn't? One drop rule.
Well, I mean, you go back 70,000 years, everyone's come from Africa, but
Yeah, what you gonna tell me? On an online fundraising page which has been created, it raised more than £5,000 to cover her legal costs. I love that. All the anti-racists are like, yeah, we gotta fund this lady. Why? She's being persecuted for saying the N-word. Oh, my sister. And they're just throwing the money and being like, yeah, that's one of ours. Love it. She claimed that she was a victim of a network of alt-right activists.
what?
As if they tricked her into tweeting it, or I don't know. Maybe she'd never heard the word before, and they were like, "Yeah, so there's this new word. It's called the M word. It means friend or homie." And then she was like, "I just thought it meant friend or homie. The alt-right tricked me."
I mean, the only way that could work is she spent way too much time on 4chan or something, and she'd been like desensitized to it.
I love it. She's just like, "Yeah, the right wing did this." Yeah, okay, Race Trust. Boy. So the university conduct towards me suggests that academics should be looking over their shoulder before they make statements about Israel or Palestine.
What?
What? No one mentioned Israel or Palestine. Jesus Christ. Or about critical race theory. This is a statement from her. So her argument is literally the N-word is a human right. I agree. I agree with the First Amendment of the United States. You know what? Yeah, I'm glad that we're finally there. Finally, we can get the wokers to say, actually, free speech is important, and actually, hate speech is a terrible idea that will just be used to stifle conversations, especially along ideological lines. It will be hyper-partisan as implemented, as we have seen with Section 127 and all the rest of it. And finally, we have an example of a lady being like, yeah, but what about my free speech? And it's because she wants the free speech to say the N-word. That's your right, and I'm going to defend your right every day of the week. You did nothing wrong. You shouldn't lose your job, I should say. You not know you did nothing wrong. Wrong thing to do, morally. But it is your free speech. It is your free speech to say the N-word, I guess. I'm glad we're finally at the American position. So there's a quote from her that continues, that is why this case and the university's role in it is not just about me and my reputation as an anti-racist. Always with the anti-racist. I'm an anti-racist. N-word. God. Fundamentally, this is an important issue of freedom of speech. Finally with her. She also maintains that the controversial tweets were not sent by her. That's the last line here of her being referenced. I find that really funny. Because, we spent the whole thing being like, well, actually, if you think about it, critical race theory allows me to say the N-word because I'm an anti-racist. And she's, justifying it. And then it's almost like she realized, maybe I'm not going to win this argument because of the paradigm I've set up in which you engage in hate speech and you have to go to jail. I mean, that's the other thing here. It's a tweet. She can get charged.
Oh, yeah, Section 127, yeah.
It's not just university. She's looking at a prison sentence, if anyone wants to message the police about that. Presumably the person who was sent, but it could be anyone who sends the police a message about that. And, you've lost. You and your folks set up this world. You set up the paradigm in which we currently live, and then you've realized, crud. What about the ability to discuss ideas? Maybe people shouldn't go to jail or lose their jobs over just a tweet. And with the job thing, I don't know. I mean, she's clearly nuts, but then all of the university is on this regards. She's not unique out of all of this. But I just love that we have the leftists finally on the side of, yeah, but the First Amendment, that's a good idea. Mm-hmm. It took this long for them to finally get to it. So if we go to the next link here, this is just the last thing to mention, which is the Free Speech Union. Of course, we managed to get the Law Commission to finally agree that Section 127 is bad, the criminalising of grossly offensive messages online, because Britain's a normal country that criminalises offence. If you offend someone in this country, that's a crime. You can have a prison sentence or a fine, or both. And it's also worse than Kuwait's blasphemy bill. So we actually have worse laws than that. But yeah, if she's not found to be not guilty or guilty out of all of this, there is also still the criminal element. Because fundamentally, she is engaged in a grossly offensive tweet, and therefore is a criminal. And I'm glad we can finally get the left to agree. Free speech is important.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 PM UK time on lotuseaters.com.